Hello, John here again, and this is tutorial 5 in my video series about the CBM Prg Studio. And in this video we're going to take a look at the debugger that's embedded inside the system. So we'll go into CBM Studio. So here we are. Now I've just created a small tutorial just to try and demonstrate the debugger, and what this program is going to do is we're using a directive called watch to load the watch panel of the debugger with the two variables, screen location height and screen location low, and these two variables are worked out here. So screen location and screen location is the main variable, and I've added 1 and 2 to derive low and high. And screen location is this byte here for this store command. So the program is basically, we load the accumulator with 0, we initialize X and Y with 0, we load the accumulator with the poke letter A, which is I think 01 for the screen poke, and then we're going to store it in the screen, comma X. So the screen location is 0400, comma X means it's going to be 0400 plus whatever. Increase X and Y, then we're going to load the screen location plus 1, which is this bit here. Clear the carry, then we're going to add 40 to it, and then we're going to store it back into that byte there. Then we're going to load the screen location plus 2, which is that byte there. We're going to add 0 to it, and the reason why we're adding 0 to it is because if the low byte has crossed the page barrier, then the carry will be set. So to carry that over into the high byte, you just add 0 to the high byte, and what it does, it adds 1 because the carry is set. If the carry is clear, then it only adds 0. Then we're going to compare Y with 20, so that's 20 rows, because Y I'm using as the row counter. And if it's not 20, we go back to the looper. And it'll carry on doing that until it's finished, and then it comes out. And effectively what it's going to do is it's going to draw a diagonal line of A's from the top corner going from left to right. So just to see that it's going to work, we're going to fire the debugger up now. So the way to do it is to do debugger, debug program. And here we are. We've got many panels come up, and just to give you an overview, so this is the debugger itself, and you've got your registers statuses. So we have the program counter, we have the accumulator, we have the X register, the Y register and the stack pointer, and we have the status register number, which reflects to being this. Now the stack pointers are FF because this is the stack window, and that is currently where the stack pointer is running. And if you remember in a previous tutorial that I did, the stack always runs in reverse, so it starts from FF and works backwards. Here is the watch list. And as you can see, the two variables that I asked to watch have already been preloaded. This is their actual value in memory, and these are the values contained within those two locations. So as you can see, 07 and 08 is here. So this is 06, 07, 08, which happens to be screen location. And then here we've got the video memory. So we have a quick representation of the video memory within the debugger. Now, because I'm going to be putting A's on this screen, I want to clear this screen of all the noughts. So the way you can do that is just by going to memory, fill, and you can tell it when to start. So I'm going to start at 0400, where to finish, 0800, and what am I going to put it in? Well, 20, because I think that's the space. I think that's poke value for the space. Click OK. There you go. It's now cleared the screen, and you can do that in any part of the memory. Not just the screen, but you can do it in any part of the memory. You can also set a one memory location. So let's just say 0500, and we're going to set it with 02, which is a B. There you go. So there's a B now in that location, and so you have full control of all the memory. Now the debugger doesn't have the Commodore 64 ROMs or the VIC-20 ROMs or the C16 or anything like that, because if you use the disassembler to scroll down, as you can see, the A1000 bank is normally basic, running through to C1000, and then E1000 bank is normally the kernel, and as you can see, there's nothing there. So if you're trying to debug a program and you've got ROM functions in there, the debugger will not work running those ROM functions because it won't be able to find it. So keep that in mind when you're using this debugger. You can also set breakpoints, and the way to do that is, let's set a breakpoint here. So click on the line, right click, and toggle breakpoint, and there you are, we've got a breakpoint. So when we run the debugger, it will stop at that point. We can disable all of them, delete all of them. We've got the watch list where you can add, and when you can add, it's because now you're in the debugger and not the assembler, it's always a memory location. So we could say add 8FFF, there you go, and it always defaults to where the cursor is. So if I move the cursor down to 9022 and then do add watch, there you are, it defaults to where the cursor is. Registers, we can set all the registers if we want. So if we wanted to predefine the registers before we run the debugger, you can do that. So you can set the accumulator, the X register, the Y register, the status register, and the stack pointer, but I'm not going to do that in this particular case. And the debug options is you can run it, and down here you have the debug speed. So when you run it, the further to this side, the slower it gets, and the further to this side, the faster it runs. So if you want to run through something very quickly, you can have it up here, but I have it roughly on the second notch there, which is roughly a second an instruction. And then other than that, so what we're going to do is I'm going to run it until it hits the breakpoint, and then I'm going to step through it. So here we go. So we're going to run it, and it's running at roughly an instruction a second. So there we go. So we've got the first A in the top corner. So it's now running through all the instructions, and as you can see, all the registry entries have been modified and stuff like that. So let's go back up. Gone a bit too far down. There we go. And it stopped on the toggle. It stopped on the breakpoint. So what I'm going to do now is there's two ways of stepping. You can step into, which means that when it comes up to a jump with return or go sub, it will jump into that go sub, and then you can step through that small routine, and then it will return back out. Or you can jump over, which means it will run that routine without the debugger tracing through it, and then bring it back to you when you finish. So we're going to step into it all the time. So here we go, I'm going to step on to the next one. So it's comparing Y with 14, and of course it's not equal to, so it moves back. Then we load one again, and as you can see, the value's changed to 0428. Remember, I set it to 0400, but I've added 40 to it. So we're going to step into it again. So it's stored an A there in the corner, and we're going to carry on stepping. So we load in 9007, which is 28. We're clearing the carry, then adding 40 to it, or 28 to it, which has now come to 50. Storing that into memory location 07, and then and as you can see, memory location 07 is here. Then we load 08, add 0, but as you can see, the carry is 0 here, so it's only going to make it 0 and store 0 back. It's going to compare it with 14, no it isn't, so it's going to come back. Now, as you can see, this is still says 0428. That's because it's a disassembler and it doesn't refresh automatically. So what I'm going to do is just move it, and did you see it? Straight away it's changed it to 0450. So as soon as you move it, that's when it refreshes. So we're going to carry on stepping into it, and we're going to run through it. So as you can see, the A's are going down, and we're waiting until we get to the point. Right, here we go. So we're at, if I just move down one, there you go, 04FO. So this is now, we're going to do a page crossover. So we're storing the A, then we're loading 9007, which loads the accumulator with FO. Then we're going to clear the carry, which it is clear. Then we're going to add 28, which is now brought it up to the accumulator to 18, but input, crucially, the carry is now being set. So it stores 18 in 9007, then it loads 9008, which is 04, then it adds 0, but effectively it's going to add 1 because of the carry. There, well, the carry's gone, it's now gone to 05, and then we store it back into the location, and now we can carry on and it still does it. There you go. This is a very powerful tool if you want to debug individual routines within your assembly code. You won't be able to debug your programs in here, especially if you call in, say, input-output ports and stuff like that, and running kernel routines as well as basic routines. But this helps you work out how to debug your routines. Now, if you wanted to debug using a 64, what you can do is you can tell in options, and then go into Debugger, you can actually tell CBM Studio to use VICE's debugger. So when you click OK, you could then do debug program, and that would fire VICE up, and VICE would then go into debug mode, and CBM Prg Studio then transfers all the so if we just assemble this, see all these variables, they get passed across to VICE. So when you go into monitor, when you go into monitor and then go debug 9000 to 9030, there we go. The labels for all your variables would be passed into this, but because we haven't fired it by the debugger, it hasn't done it. Now, the reason why I'm not doing this with this is because the fact that this is a beta test and it's a bug that I've reported to Arthur. But just for showing purposes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire it. Oh, it is working. No, it ain't. There we go. So we get the error. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because I know what's wrong with it, and I've told Arthur what's wrong with it. So I'm going to run, copy all this, I'm going to paste it into there, and I'm going to fix the problem, which is here, and press enter. There we go. So I've now loaded the emulator up. If I go into monitor mode and do D9000 to D9020, can you see, look, it says screen location +1, screen location +1, there's screen location, looper, and so all the labels has passed through. And this allows you then to say, so if I, so let's just, can't remember what clear screen is here. What if it's that? No. There we go. So here, if I go SYS, in fact, we'll do it a bit further down so we don't get in the way. 4096 times 9. There you go. So there's the A's, but we didn't run that in the debugger, so we can run that in the debugger. So I'm going to start up monitor, and I'm going to put a breakpoint there. So let's see if I can put a breakpoint. I thought we could put a breakpoint in here. So that's the status register. That's the disassembler. Right, let's go to 9000. There we go. Too far. Keep going, keep going. There we go. So I'm going to put a breakpoint there. Set breakpoint. So 902, I'm going to go 9000. So I'm going to go 9000, and straight away it's now hit the breakpoint. And then we've got the same situation here. We've got step into, step over, step out of. So I'm going to step into, and as you can see, it's running through it. So let's bring the disassembler down here. And it's running through it, and and as you can see at the top, the status registers are changing. Now that should have done a few, but we'll wait until we see an A come up. So if I go back here, no, it's not updating the screen. But if I say step out of, you know what, it's done it. So, and that shows you exactly what it can do inside the debugger. So there's two ways of doing it, and there you go. Because I left the breakpoint in place, it's broke on the on that breakpoint. So I'm going to clear the breakpoint, unset breakpoint, and I'm going to go. And that's now putting the A's further down here, because if you do the monitor and then here, let's go to an address. Let's find it. Too far. There we go. Because it's at OD60 now. So I'd have to change the number there to fix it. Alright. So I'm hoping that has been informative for the CBM Prg Studio Debugger, and hopefully you guys will find this tutorial interesting and use the debugger in a more proactive way. With that, I will see you on the next video. Take care. Bye.